So I, I thank God that God has put many people in my life who really love me and they like real friends, let's say that, who have been looking out for me. They know I was in the street, sleeping under the bridges, with my clothes wet, all the stuff.
Child poverty remains a persistent and distressing issue, casting a shadow over the lives of millions of children worldwide. Defined by a lack of access to basic necessities such as adequate nutrition, shelter, healthcare, and education. It deprives children of their fundamental rights and opportunities for growth. Beyond material deprivation, child poverty inflicts profound emotional and psychological scars, limiting aspirations and perpetuating cycles of disadvantage across generations. One of the biggest parts of their lives that are affected is their education.
So I have a job. I work at Wingstop, and I work after school. Work 7 hours per day and almost 40 hours per week. I work because I have to support my family.
And for me, it's kind of hard sometimes to do my homework because when I get home, I go like tired and I don't even fix myself. I just go to straight to sleep. And then the next day, that's when I do my necessities.
Uh, Poverty has a draining effect on students. It has a time commitment effect on students where students will often have to rely much more on public transportation to get to and from school, which often means that their schedule has to be adjusted and they end up waiting significantly longer to get picked up, or they get to school later.
Congress and the nation saw across the US, it wasn't just one state, it wasn't one region, it was literally across our nation. Children in poverty were not getting a good quality education.
And so I've had students before who will come to class and they're tired, have trouble staying awake in class because they were working late the night before with their mom or their dad sometimes, or they have their own job, but still they're working a lot of shifts and long hours.
Whether it be helping parents take care of younger siblings after work or going to a job every day after school to raise money, students, specifically high schoolers, living in poverty don't get to experience the fullness of their education, unlike students not living
So I
in
remember a
poverty.
student that I had, and their house had just burned down. They lost everything in it, and it really was the last straw for them. There, it was a single parent household. The mom was barely making ends meet as it was, and the loss of everything that they owned hit them hard. They were living out of a motel room when they could. Otherwise, they were just bouncing around, and it was heartbreaking. The child had to hurry home because they had to watch the younger siblings while mom was at work, and mom was trying to get, you know, pull double, sometimes triple shifts just to get enough food for a motel room so that her kids had shelter, or so that her kids had food to eat that day, because they no longer had a pantry that had cereal and chips and fruit in it. At that point, you definitely understand that, okay, yeah, school's not important at that point.
Good housing, access to food, good transportation, neighborhood, safe neighborhood, all of those, there's a direct correlation between when a kid is performing well, now how well these things are in the environment that they're growing up in. And putting very mildly, when those things are good, the chances of a child thriving is increased.
Although it's obvious there are still many issues with kids living in poverty and the quality of education they get, this does not mean that the Department of Education hasn't done anything to help these kids at risk.
Good morning. Let me just say my name is Maureen Dowling, and I'm the Director of the Office of Non-Public Education at the U.S. Department of Education, and I've been with the U.S. Department of Education for 24 years. And this morning, I won't be speaking officially providing the U.S. Department of Education views, but more so my views as both a teacher, a school principal, and also working with the department for 24 years. So in 1965, it was part of President Johnson's war on poverty. And they did many things during that time frame. But one of the things Congress did is they passed the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, or the ESEA. And in that act, one of the major programs, which is today still operating, called Title I, was to support local educational agencies or public school districts, support states in ensuring that students in poverty received a quality education. So what Congress decided is we are going to send money to the states and then to the school districts based on the number of low-income children in those districts. So what happened is that more funds would flow into a state that had more children who were from low-income families than a state that had fewer. And the purpose of that was then that the states and the school districts would provide specific services to students who were academically at risk. So that the target was, let's put the money where it's most needed in those pockets of poverty. But then, even to this day, the students who receive those Title I services are those who are most in need of academic enrichment, academic support.
While there is a lot being done to help students living in poverty at the federal and state level, what can be done in the individual school to help these students, specifically high school? The first major change that can be done is making sure that kids and parents are aware of the opportunities that they could have after high school in furthering their education.
So giving them access to how can they go to community college, because again, college isn't only accessible to one group of people, but the reality is when you're in poverty, you don't know you can go to college for free. You don't know that there's this program that specifically targets you and gives money to you to help you move from one wealth line or one class level to another. So giving them access to that information to help their families.
Having meetings with the parents, either like even just one-on-one or just having like a parent night or something, and explaining to them what goes on at school and all the extra opportunities that are available for their child, and also any kind of scholarships or help that would be available if money were an issue in their student participating in those things.
Another fix that could be made at the individual school level, especially at high school, is changing the stigma that people have around poverty. Many children, especially high schoolers, because they are at an older age and worried about being judged by their peers, are afraid to take advantage of opportunities that could possibly help them or assist them, such as getting food from a closet or taking donations from other people to help.
So the students that came from a less privileged background, they likely had to focus on both keeping up this type of appearance and worrying about feeling judged by their classmates while all the time trying to learn. So it's more like they couldn't focus, I think, as much on what they were doing, trying to get an education, when they had this other burden to manage.
Overall, it is clear to see that high school students living in poverty do not get to have the chance to have a full education unlike their peers. Whether their time is taken up by having extra jobs or having to watch siblings after school, it could even be worrying about how they look because they are afraid of their peers judging them. These students don't get the chance to focus on education and furthering their academic career. But that doesn't mean that there isn't anything that we can do. We can go out and learn about these people's lives to help get rid of the shame that they might have. We can show them opportunities that don't require money and don't require jobs. And by doing this, we can help end the perpetuating cycle of poverty in their families by helping them further their academic career.
Education is so important. It is important. because when you are outside, let's say in the streets, it's like you don't care about education. But when something happening to you, that's when you start changing, start thinking differently, and that's when you find out that education, it is important. It is important. So I'm trying my best to graduate. I know it is a lot of obstacles, but I'm trying my best.